welcome back to another episode of Sports Speak. I'm your host, Tanyon Loose.
I'm your co-host, Spencer Ripchik.
So we're coming to you after a little bit of a break over Thanksgiving. How was your break, Spencer?
It was busy but relaxed, I would put it. How about yours?
I think mine was pretty similar. Watched a lot of sports, football.
Yeah.
It's nice to not have to worry about having to do schoolwork and stuff like that over break. I could just sit there, eat some food, watch football all day, watch some basketball.
Yeah, I didn't touch any of my schoolwork until last night or Sunday night.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest, I have a lot to do, but none of it got done over break. So as we start all these off with our favorite news of the week, I'm going to let Spencer get us started this time, I think. What was your favorite news of the week, Spencer?
Well, it's not really my favorite news. It's kind of just my news that caught my eye because Penn State women's basketball lost its last two games. I mean, the Nittany Lions were off to a hot 4-1 start with its only loss coming to Clemson. As of late, its last two matches against Iowa State and Kent State in the Gulf Coast Showcase. The Iowa State loss was pretty significant since it lost by 40 points, 90-53. After taking that beatdown, it looked to bounce back against Kent State, but it lost another game, 81-74. A little bit closer on that side, but I mean, still a loss. Penn State has its Big Ten ACC challenge coming up with Boston College, who's all right at 4-1, but it hasn't played anybody yet, so I mean, the record doesn't really say much. And then after the Nittany Lions go right in Big Ten play with a huge hopefully they have a huge build of momentum against Boston College to slingshot them into the Big Ten play, or they will get pretty much slaughtered, with the Big Ten being one of the best divisions in women's basketball again.
There's some solid teams there, Iowa, Maryland, teams like that.
Yeah.
I honestly kind of expected them to have a better start to this season. I really had some high expectations for the team, and I can't say that I don't recall Kent State being exactly a powerhouse or anything like that. So.
Especially if they dropped 100 on that one team. I mean,
I know.
And then they get beat by 40 points. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I don't know. So my news actually is women's hockey. So this is on Black Friday. Well, everyone else is out shopping, but the women's hockey team pulled off really one of their best wins in recent history. They took down number 6 Minnesota Duluth. They had a third period comeback, I think, in the end there. They were down 2-1 going into the third period, and then it was Natalie Heising and Lindy Lodbell. Each scored to put up 2 goals in that period and kind of slingshotted Penn State to victory, and it was their first ranked win since 2018 when they beat Colgate. So that was a huge monumental win for the team there. Unfortunately, they then lost to number 2 Ohio State, but I mean, still, a ranked win is a ranked win, and that's a big thing for this team that's really come on in recent years.
Looks like that Penn State women's hockey got the bigger end of the wishbone at Thanksgiving for that win.
For sure.
But something that's always in the news is the Penn State wrestling team. So Tanyon right here is my go-to guy for Penn State wrestling. So I have some questions for him, and my first question is, with the season underway, how's the roster shaping up?
I mean, honestly, I feel like most fans kind of aware of this. There's some holes at some weight classes, and that there was really kind of up in the air. It's kind of where things were going. So I think there's been some headway in some of those classes. I know Kale said today in his press conference that Terrell Barraclaw actually is going to get the starting spot at 157. So he was kind of sick for the beginning of the season, and he's only wrestled once this far when he got majored. So not exactly a great start to the season, but he was facing a ranked opponent. But I mean, they're going to need him to kind of step it up a little bit, and there's going to be plenty of more good competitors in the Big Ten that he's going to have to wrestle. So they got to hope that he kind of gets some improvement there. And I think that some other ones, you're looking at 133. Not 133, 125. Baylor Shunk he's had an up and down start to this season. He's had some wins, some losses, and I mean, he's going to definitely need to improve come Big Ten. I feel like that's the story for a lot of the weight classes, kind of where there's some younger guys that are getting really their first reps for the team. So I think there's still a lot to learn yet, and I think there's 2 huge matches coming up, and their Penn and Lehigh matches are both talented teams. I mean, most teams from Pennsylvania are talented, just given how strong of a wrestling region it is. So I think that's going to show a lot about kind of this roster in general.
Well, I know coming into the season, Iowa was a big team that Penn State was in Penn State's way. But now with Nick Serrano transferring to Michigan, how does the Wolverines roster stack up against Penn State?
Yeah, I mean, the Nick Sirianni transfer is really kind of the big news in the wrestling world, I feel like, as of late. I mean, anytime you have a former national champion kind of joining a team, especially in the Big Ten, which is obviously the most dominant conference in the sport. It's going to be big news. I mean, he's had kind of quite the interesting career. I mean, he obviously had success and won a national championship at Rutgers after he transferred from Penn State as one of the most decorated high school wrestlers of all time. He went undefeated and 4-time state champion in New Jersey. But, I mean, he's going to bring something to that team that could really make them pretty dangerous. I mean, he's kind of really been all over the place recently. He had some freestyle wrestling. He had some international tournaments where he wrestled against a lot of guys who compete in the Olympics from kind of those Eastern, like Asian, Western European countries kind of there that are all talented wrestlers. And he had some success against them as well. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting. I mean, Michigan was ranked, I believe it was number 6, I think, in like the dual rankings that Intermat puts out. So I could easily see them kind of vaulting up to like maybe 3rd overall. Penn State's number 2, but I mean, you never know. They could even surpass Penn State, they have a number of talented guys on their team, and they have a pretty deep team as well. They really don't have many holes in many weight classes. So it really kind of just makes things interesting when everyone thought it was going to be pretty much Penn State and Iowa in the conference, and now Michigan really is a definite contender in the conference for sure.
2 yellow teams stand in the way of Penn State, it sounds like. But so far, there's a couple of matches that have gone on. What is the biggest storyline so far this season?
I mean, I would like to say, I guess, some of those weight classes that don't have the national champions. Adam, I'm really looking at Bo Bartlett has had a great start to the season. Like, I really think that Cale Sanderson couldn't be much happier with the way he started things out. He's had wins over multiple ranked opponents now. And, I mean, he hasn't always kind of, like, flashed in those matches, and he's really kind of squeaked out some wins. But to me, what really matters, I mean, is the win itself. I mean, he's shown that he can get it done when it matters, and he kind of get it done under pressure, too. He's been in the third period in really close matches, and he's found ways to win in all those. And that's what you look for in, like, a big-time wrestler at a program like Penn State. You want guys that can go out there and really get things done.
Yeah, but my biggest question is my 4 favorite guys, the 4 national champions. How have they looked so far this season?
I mean, they've definitely looked pretty solid. There hasn't been a ton of competition for them, I'd say, so far yet. They haven't had any of those big-time matches with those Big Ten schools yet, and they're going down to Florida soon to wrestle in those journeyman duels, and they're going to have a lot of great competition there. So I think that's going to be a big thing to keep an eye on. But I mean, there's been some great moments for them. There was a little bit of concern actually with Nick Lee. He kind of had like a minor knee injury, but Cale made it seem like it really wasn't going to be much of a problem going forward. It was just a minor thing that kept him out of their last duel versus Army, but I think he'll be back and healthy going forward. And I mean, everyone else has looked pretty good. They've had a number of tech falls from those guys. I mean, Roman Bravo Young had that insane jump over the Army wrestler that he was wrestling against for the takedown there against him. That got him the tech fall. I mean, it's been as expected, I guess, kind of business as usual for those guys until they get into some stronger competition.
Well, it sounds like they're doing pretty well, which is what every Penn State fan wants to hear.
Exactly.
But people, the Penn State football fans, not too happy. They suffered another defeat this past weekend to Michigan State. So we decided to put together our own Penn State offense full of Penn State athletes. So, Tanny, you want to start us off with who you got throwing the ball at quarterback?
Yeah. I mean, obviously this is a little bit of a struggle here. Quarterback's such a unique position kind of out there. So I went with a member of the baseball team, actually. We got a guy named Chad Rogers. He's 6'5", plays pitcher for the team, so you know he's got an arm. And he played, so I did some digging here. I'm not going to just throw some random guys out there. I found stats from his middle school QB days.
Oh, dang.
But from what I could tell, he played football in high school, but he didn't start. So I don't know if there is someone ahead of him. I'm assuming he played QB, but I'm assuming there's someone ahead of him that was pretty dang good. But he's definitely like your prototypical QB. He's got the height, he's got the arm. So, I mean, I think he could get it done if you put him on the team for a little bit. Got some coaching.
Well, I think my quarterback would probably be better since my quarterback is Gerald Filardi Jr. of the men's lacrosse team. I mean, he's kind of cheating since he did play quarterback in high school, unlike your quarterback. And his dad also played in the Rose Bowl for Penn State in the mid-'90s. So he has a background in football. And he's 6'2" and very fast, so he's kind of like one of the fan favorite Penn State quarterbacks, Trace McSorley. So, yeah, I think he can sling the ball, maybe scramble outside of the pocket, pick up those extra yards. So, yeah, who do you got at running back?
So I got a string of track athletes coming up here. Actually, I guess this is more which one of us could scour the Penn State roster pages better to find our athletes. So I got a Savion Hebron at running back. He's the son of a longtime NFL return man, Vaughn Hebron, who played for both the Eagles and the Broncos. And he's a Super Bowl champion with the Broncos there, and I think he had a number of highlights that I found from his high school days playing running back. He had a number of long touchdowns. He clearly just so much faster than all the guys he was playing against, hence why he's on the track team here. But I mean, I think that breakaway speed could be an absolute kind of X factor for my fake team here. It's something that the football team hasn't shown, and the running backs there this season. So I think Savion's going to get it done for my squad.
Yeah, he seems like a real speedster. I went down a different route. I chose Carter Strachey from the wrestling team as my running back because I just think every single time I see him out, he's a big, strong guy, a little compact size. So I think he'll get you those extra 3 to 4 yards if you put him in at running back because he's just so small and so strong. He'll move his legs and push for the extra yardage. Also, he has a can't lose mentality, so I feel like if you need him to get that 1 yard, he'll get it because obviously his can't lose and can't lose mentality would be big for the football team because it seems nowadays in college football a one loss is everything and as many losses you can not have. I feel like if you put him there, yeah, he'll definitely get you those 4 yards that you need, unlike Penn State's running backs who have struggled all season.
That is true. He certainly has quite the confidence in himself there. So I think we're going to move on to wide receiver now. And I am ecstatic about this pick here. I got another member of the track team. Is Isaac Osifo, and he's from Georgia, really predominant football state there, and so he's a high jumper for the team. He has a nearly 7-foot high jump. He's also a member of the school record-holding 4x100 and 4x400 relay teams for his high school there in Georgia. I think it was at the highest classification of school size, so you think there's got to be some good athletes that have come from there beforehand. So I think he's got the wheels, he's got the hops. I think that's your prototypical wide receiver there. I can throw up them jump balls in the end zone. He'll go and get it.
End zone. Yeah, well, I went a little bit of a different route. I went with Kevin Wall of the men's hockey team. He's a small little. Not really small. He's taller than me. He's 6'1". He's 6'1", but for a wide receiver, it's a little bit on the smaller side. But I like him. Put him in the slot. Very fast. He has a lot of speed on the ice. So hopefully it translates onto the field, which I think it does. And you can't really teach speed, but you can teach a person to catch. So if he doesn't know how to catch, well, you can teach him that, but you can't really teach his lightning fast speed. So I think him on the team, there's one of the receiver that can blow by a defense, and he'll be good. The defense will be in for a long day if you got him running in the slot. A little bit kind of like Parker Washington.
Maybe they could have used him out in the snow.
Oh yeah, but I don't know if he can catch. So yeah. It might be. I mean, it actually could have worked. The snow and the ice kind of similar.
No way to know. Anyways, I have my second wide receiver slot. We're going back to the track team again here. I mean, I frankly think
take the whole track team.
I mean, honestly, they could put together a pretty decent team if you come to think of it. But I got another guy. We got Kamir Day. He put up really legit numbers in high school. He was a wide receiver at Harrisburg High School, where Micah Parsons went, and I mean, he was initially, it looks like he was focused on football, honestly, in high school, and I kind of said that he did track kind of to get better for football, and I just found that he's very fast and very good. I think he was third in the 100-meter dash of the state championships in PA, and he has, a history of playing wide receiver in high school, so I think that's another speedster you can have. I mean, you always need those guys on your roster. I think someone who can get that downfield. Kind of open up the defense there a little bit. So I do got 2 track guys at wide receiver there. I think that you need the wheels to play that position, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, I went down a different route for this one. I went for speed with the first one, but this one I went more with the hands. I went with Chris Shakes, the men's soccer goalie. He's one of the best goalkeepers in the Big Ten. I mean, he has really good hands at the goalkeeping position, keeping those balls out of the net and catching them when they come really fast at him. So he knows what it's like to win a Big Ten championship, which is what the football team is aiming for. So yeah, with his experience, with his hands and his reflexes to save those goals, I think he could be a really good receiver. And I think you just probably have to work on his route running to get open. But I feel like if you throw the ball, he's definitely coming down with it. But who do you got at the tight end position, you think?
I feel like we both got the same guy here, which is pretty obvious, is John Hare, who was literally going to play tight end at Army. So I came with a backup option because, I mean, there's really one obvious choice here. But if we're kind of excluding John Hare from the conversation, I got a Kenny Johnson who's on the hockey team. He's 6'4", 230. So I think he can definitely get in there, throw some blocks, maybe catch a ball here and there. He's also from Ann Arbor, Michigan, so I gotta hope he's got a little bit of that football mindset in him, given he's from, I mean, a football crazy area. A school that's been known for its football team for a long time. So I think obviously it's John Hare, but I mean I think Kenny Johnson can get in there and really make an impact for my team as well.
Yeah, it sounds like you definitely came more prepared than me because I went with John Hara, and I don't really have a backup. So I'm just going to tell you why John Hara is the better fit. He's 6'9", obviously, so he's got a tall stature for those 50-50 balls that you're throwing to him. But he also has the speed to outrun those little linebackers. And he's also 240 pounds, so he's a big body to move when it comes to blocking. And he also boxes out in basketball, which is kind of like blocking in football. So I kind of went there. But I feel like, yeah, he's kind of a big target to hit in the end zone. So yeah, he'll definitely be a big playmaker. But who did you got blocking for your team?
Yeah, so we got our line here. I may have somewhat cheated on this one. So I went with Seth Nevels, who's on the wrestling team, but he also walked on to the football team as an offensive lineman. So I gotta hope that he had a whole season of training there with James Franklin and his staff. So I mean, I think I went with Seth Neville. He's a big body. He knows how to use his hands, obviously, wrestling and move his feet. He's got to be kind of pretty athletic out there on the mat, be able to contort your body and move around. So I think with that extra football training recently, Seth Neville is definitely the guy.
Yeah, well, I also dipped into the wrestling team. I went with Greg Kirkvliet, who's at 285 pounds, is an absolute tank. I mean, he has a wrestling background, which is very good for football, and it is a football coach's dream. I know when I was playing football, the wrestling coach would always be trying to get me to wrestle because wrestling works with your hands and stuff. And with his wrestling background, he knows how to pin people down, which is kind of like what an offensive line wants to do. You want to get those pancakes. So yeah, I think you put him in the offensive line position, I feel like he'll definitely give. If you put him in there right now, Sean Clifford will definitely have a lot more time than he has now. So yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I know. I think we'll see. I think I may have the better team, but I mean, we'll see.
You pretty much have a track team.
I do have the track team. I do have the majority of the track team making my roster. Anyways, so I mean, we were just talking about John Harrar, and he may not actually play football despite his talents, but he will be in action during the Big Ten ACC Challenge that's coming up this week. So I'm just kind of wondering, as our resident basketball reporter here, what games you're looking forward to in the challenge?
Well, obviously, Penn State. I stuck them in there. Penn State versus Miami. I feel like out of this slate of games, this is one of the more even ones. Some notable names for the Hurricanes. That rhymed. Is 6-year senior guard Cameron McGusty, who is the offensive workhorse for the Hurricanes, averaging 17.6 points per game. Other than him, Miami has Isaiah Wong, who is averaging 15.6 per game. And then they also have 6-year senior guard Charlie Moore, who's bringing in 10.7 points per game. So they have a lot of variation there. They're not one-dimensional like some other teams. They have all their players can score. But overall, they're pretty well-rounded on offense. And then, like Penn State, they have Sam Sessons, who carries loads, Seth Lundy, Miles Dredd, Jalen Pickett. They're all offensively spread out. However, Miami's defense is one of the worst in the ACC, allowing the third most points in the conference. So I think they're even on paper, but I feel like this is a very winnable game for Penn State if they can definitely, like they have been doing, knocking down those threes. And I think this could be a potential blowout, but I feel like if Penn State struggles playing defensively and the offensive they keep on missing shots, I feel like it could be close, but it should be interesting. How about you? What game are you looking out for?
So I'm a little bit biased here. I'm looking at the Michigan UNC game that's coming up. I'm be honest, I was a UNC fan growing up for the majority of my life, so I think these teams also just match up really well. I mean, Michigan obviously has one of the premier players in the Big Ten. You got Hunter Dickinson, who had a great freshman season for the Wolverines there, and they also have a 5-star forward in Caleb Houston, who's joined the team, and I think he's had a rocky start to the season, but he wouldn't be the 5-star recruit that he is without that talent there. But I mean, UNC has kind of been a team that's really been known for playing through their bigs in recent years. I mean, they got Armando Bacot, Dawson Garcia, and Brady Manick, who are all pretty solid down low there. So I'm kind of interested to see how those kind of teams match up that are really more focused on their front court. But they also, I mean, they have talented guards. I think North Carolina has guys in the R.J. Davis and Caleb Love, who are both kind of been erratic in their college careers so far. They were both highly touted recruits coming out of high school, but they've kind of shown flashes here and there, but both had turnover problems. And Michigan has Eli Brooks, who's really kind of that steadfast veteran guard presence that leads their team there. So it'll be interesting, kind of a matchup of young versus old there on those two backcourts. So I think it could really play out to be a super interesting game in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I know Hunter Dickerson's a defensive beast, so it'll be interesting. And both teams came in the season with very, very high hopes of making the NCAA tournament and being top contenders in their conference, and they've both had pretty not so good starts. So should be interesting to see which one of those teams puts their head above water in that tournament.
For sure.
But my second game that I have is Ohio State versus Duke. I mean, the Blue Devils are back to top form after pretty much taking the year off last year with their not even making the tournament. So Coach K is in his last season at Duke, and his team is the top-ranked team in the nation after beating Gonzaga. And a major part of that is freshman standout Paolo Banchero, who is the Blue Devils' leading scorer and is already a top prospect for next year's NBA draft. And as I said, they're coming off an upset win over the previous number one team in the nation, Gonzaga. So it should send them flying into the Big Ten ACC tournament or challenge with a ton of momentum after that big win. But Ohio State is pretty much a one-man show with E.J. Liddell leading the way, averaging 22.5 points per game. And the rest of his teammates are pretty much non-existent. I feel bad for them since Jamari Wheeler was a Penn State guy. But they're all averaging under 10 points per game, so it's pretty much E.J. Liddell, all the rest. And I don't make predictions often, but I'm leaning towards Duke picking up the win based on one fact that the Blue Devils have won the most Big Ten ACC Challenge wins out of any ACC team or Big Ten team. So they definitely have the history, they have the present, and they got everything.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a mismatch there. For those teams, Ohio State maybe is not quite the team that some people thought they would be this season. Duke is, if anything, kind of exceeded expectations. But I'm looking for another kind of not really. I guess you can consider them blue bloods. I got Indiana versus Syracuse, who are two teams that had a lot of success kind of recently, but then kind of in the last couple of years have kind of fallen off a little bit and really not quite what their historic programs have been. But to me, it's just the match between the two stars of the teams. You got Trace Jackson Davis and Buddy Boeheim, who are both just phenomenal players for their teams there, and it's just more interesting to me for the two brands kind of more than the actual teams themselves. But I'm more interested in why there isn't a game between Duke and Purdue, who are the number one and number two teams in the nation right now. I feel like kind of the committee, whoever made this matchup, kind of was looking more for TV value. I know Purdue's not quite the big brand that Ohio State might offer, but I feel like they were kind of co-favorites in the Big Ten this year, alongside with Michigan, who's kind of had a rough start to the season, and Duke was the clear favorite in the ACC. So I don't know why those two teams get matched up. I'd be really excited to watch that one, but not meant to be, I guess.
Yeah, the two Boeheim brothers and Joe Girard, who is actually lived really close to where I live, 10 minutes away. Played there. He dropped probably 40-plus points a game, and then he comes to Syracuse and can't even drop 10. So, I mean, just shows the difference between high school ball and college ball.
Indeed.
Well, that's all we have for this episode of Sports Week. We'll be back with another episode next week.
If you want to get more content from the Collegian or any news of any kind, feel free to visit the Collegian website. And if you want to see any more of these podcasts or any other digital content from the Collegian, please consider subscribing to the Daily Collegian YouTube channel. So thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of your week.